right, and a hearty shout out to all of you in the Rabyd Nation. Welcome once again to the Rabyd Atheist and to our Saturday show where I spend a lot of time these days reviewing videos made by Paulogia about Habermas because I got drawn into this conflict. And so that's kind of what we're going to do tonight, kind of continuing on. This is part 2 of a video Paul did, probably 3 weeks ago that I'm looking at. So welcome one and all. I'm your host, Ed Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. This is my channel, The Rabyd Atheist. And here we go again. But I want to thank everybody for stopping by. Enjoyed my time over at Captive Desk on Saturday night at the Atheist earlier. And, that's always fun when creationists talk about dinosaurs. They always seem to indicate that they don't know what they're talking about. Which is always a good time. But yes, everybody, welcome. There's a goal in chat. As always, I usually have some sort of hat that I will wear voted on, once the super chat goal is released. There is a new one in there and an almost new one. The Santa hat is in there. The Holy Bunny hat actually has competition for once, with the redneck snowman hat, which is very, very new. And so it has not debuted yet. So there's that one. And I threw in the newsboy hat in just for, it seems to be the most popular during the week. So, so there you go. But welcome one and all. I'm going to get a quick roll call here. John from Holland. Yeah, all right. Good to see you. Fred is here. Cranky Elder Gods are here present. That's always Blossom. Good to see you. I'll answer this question a little bit, John, about Gary Habermas being a scholar. But yeah, I'll talk about that. Paul's here. Good to see Paul. Skeptic Philosophy is here. Actually, it gets votes during the week when some of the other ones are kind of lame. But it has won several times, actually, Skeptic. People love the Newsboy one in certain contexts. So it's 3 it's 3 after midnight. Okay. That's dedication. I'll give you that. Wolf is here. Wolf Sinclair is here. Alex is here. All right. Yeah. Also, if the lap in which our Lord naps arrives at some point, I got a box in the mail from all of you people who raised money to get me something for something. And so there's an unboxing at some point during the show. I'm not really sure. We're kind of winging it here tonight. But I will do that whenever I see that the people that were involved are here and I've got a large enough crowd to do it. We'll do that. We'll interrupt everything and do that. So I don't know. I ran it through the x-ray machine. It came through okay. So I guess we'll be all right. Hey, Elizabeth, good to see you. All right. Without further ado, though, we're going to, and I always like to put, this is the thumbnail you guys saw without all the lettering in front of it. This has been a saga of a long time saga. So, there you go. This is the saga photograph. This is the poster that's been up for ages. And so there we go. So there we go. I didn't do a sniffer test on it, though. That would probably rule the fun, probably. Hey, Scuzz. Hey, Scuzz Bopper. All right, there we go. There we go. Some people, so there you go. But I'm gonna let me grab Habermas here. Sound is off. I'm gonna stop this. Let's see. I think I wanted to get about 28 minutes, somewhere in there. That's about 45 minutes before we stopped last time, where Paul is talking about the evangelical claim. So there's that. Yes, Haber the Hut. It's the Gary, yes. Good to see you, Evan. Yes, the Fluffle is all well with you. So I think I can go to this one. You guys can see my reaction a little bit better. But before I begin, though, I wanted to, John had a question, is whether he's an official scholar. He works at Liberty University. Now, Liberty University used to be Liberty Baptist College, and they changed the name. They opened up their accreditation a little bit more. They are an accredited university in the United States. What is it? Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on College. But they currently are facing a little controversy because they have underreported crimes on campus, particularly those of a sexual assault variety. So they're kind of under fire for that. But Habermas himself actually has a degree from Michigan State University. That's where he gets his PhD from. So, and he did it on resurrection, like what a state university back in the 1970s would have accepted as far as resurrection scholarship is where he got his PhD from. So is he a legit scholar? Yeah. Is he doing good scholastic work of late? No. There's the difference. So, yes. But yeah. Yeah, if they misuse them, it's a problem. Yeah. So there you go. Hey, Earl. Good to see you. The lap in which our Lord naps is here. Fangs is always pleased with the lap. So, I got your box, Earl. I even opened the outer box. So, I haven't looked inside. I haven't seen anything. We'll do that a little bit later. Gifts. So, you saw a cute bunny. There you go. See, this is Fangs at work. Fangs letting you know that he's watching over you. Just all the cute bunnies. Never tested passage supplies could be supposed to be entertaining. Oh my goodness. Yes, I got the box. So we're good. All right. Yes, it's a killer rabbit. Could be. See, I went to LU and it was fun, minus the Christian brainwashing 3 times a week in chapel, a weird purity rules. Yes. And that's kind of like I went to a similar school. My very first school that I went to was Evangel College in Springfield, Missouri. I went there a semester, and that's kind of the feel I got to. It was like it was mostly fun college, but it had all these purity culture rules, and then it had, the chapel requirement. But other than that, you were pretty much left to do what you wanted. They just couldn't keep on it. I know. I got it. I said it might not get it. You got to understand, I live in a rural small town. Okay. And so when something is said to be delivered is kind of more like guidelines and actual rules. It's like Captain Barbosa is doing UPS at that point. So it's like, because I've ordered stuff and it says, oh, I'll get here Wednesday, don't get there Friday. And then I've had other stuff like your package, which actually got here like half a day early. So that was it. Yeah, I know. But yeah, it's the thing with Liberty University is it used to be Liberty Baptist College. So you need to understand that culture is still there and it's still very evangelical, culturally motivated. So, but a lot of their research is questioned, but their accreditation's under fire too because of their underreporting of sexual assault. So, and that's not unusual. That happens to a lot of colleges and universities in the United States. They get yelled at for violating reporting rules because they're supposed to report all crimes and safety violations for accuracy reasons. So it's wrong. You go, but yes. So it's like, but yeah, I was worried, Earl, because it was like I know how it works out here. It's like Captain Barbosa is driving the UPS truck, like guidelines, not rules. So yeah, you have to sign. I think you have to sign a statement of faith before you can work there. I'm not sure about the staff, but I'm fairly certain the faculty does. They have to sign a statement of faith. So Habermas is kind of doomed one way or the other because he can't come out and say like the resurrection didn't happen. Okay, he can't do that. So yeah, I guess. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it either. So, but yes, this is where we were. Here, I'm gonna make myself small again. There we go. But yes, this is kind of where we were, and I want to review Paulogia's claim, and I have to, of course, can't hear my own videos if I don't put my earphones in. So, all right. So let's see where we were, try to get caught back up. And this is part 2 of this review. So here,
no one in the maybe category to count as evangelical. That seems pretty implausible to me, but statistically possible. You know what? I'm just going to let Gary have this one. He can say that the references are 3-to-1 non-evangelical if he wants. At the end of the day, it's 81% Christian.
okay, so then this is where we kind of were. I know like Real Seeker has made the accusation that Paul didn't count all the references because like the ones separated by a dash, that means there's a reference on every page. And of course, he put out Bart Ehrman's quotes there when he did his video. Well, kind of insinuating that he's undercounting the non-Christian references. I'm like, if he made that error all the way through, it would also be among the Christian references. And because you have like 80% Christians, you're still going to have probably stats, based on my understanding of statistics, you're still going to have stats that look very similar to this. In other words, a lot of Christian references and a lot of not very many non-Christian references. So there you go. And it's kind of an insinuation. So here we go. So he was statistically incorrect, which is the worst kind. Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of, and Paul let it go, but I'm not going to let it go because I've had a couple stats classes. And so the evangelical claim is still suspect to me because if it's maybe evangelical, I've got to split that in half without further data. So it's still way off. Like it's still like 40% evangelical and to me. So until you get better data, like I'm not sure how you determine because once again, Habermas was completely vague on his evangelical claim. So there's that aspect of it. So, yeah, there's also the issue. The other thing that came up in this whole discussion, Michael, was Habermas doesn't allow Islamic scholars in this at all. And there's a lot of Islamic scholars that have commented on the resurrection about why they don't believe in it. And he doesn't include them at all. So it's one of the things that's kind of, yeah. Yes, the all telling God's turd. Yes. Like, I don't know what Real Seeker and Habermas think by changing the parameters it will do. You're probably still going to get an 80-20 ratio all the way through, regardless of what you do with Habermas's 3 books. You're going to get this massive amount of Christian references and not very many non-Christian references. About 20% to 80, I think, would still stay the same no matter how you count the citations. So it's pretty much going to stay the same. I mean, I don't know if Paul's planning on going back and redoing the references based on that criticism. He might, and if it gets worse again, it's like, good grief, Dale, Gary, you need to do the math yourself before you make ridiculous claims. So there you go. But here we go.
Evangelical versus non-evangelical is a distinction without a difference in a resurrection debate. At the end of the day, this is a marketing statistic for a reference book, and actually just one big distraction from the actual reason anyone should be interested in Gary's books. His minimal facts case for the resurrection, and the reality that Volume 3 does nothing at all to help it, and is a huge disappointment to scholars of all stripes.
Correct. This is where we kind of ended last time, and so I want to just review. Real Seeker did put out a video responding to some of this. I can summarize the first 45 minutes because I couldn't get any farther. But basically, me and Paul are meanies because we dared bring up math and numbers, and I dared back Paul up with his math and numbers and some of his observations. And then he also threw in the fact that he didn't know why Christians were listening to us because we're demon-inspired liars from Satan, so to speak. I think I got that part pretty much summarized correctly. And the biggest problem that Habermas is now facing is Christians. Christian scholars are coming after him for his shoddy work. And so that's kind of where it is. So Yeah, the Jewish scholars don't believe it. The Muslims don't believe it. There's probably some good Hindu scholars that have talked about the resurrection. They don't believe it either. It's sad because if he had included all of them, he might have gotten closer to his majority are non-Christians claim. So yes, I know we're meanies. But his basic, Real Seeker's basic, I couldn't watch it anymore because I was losing IQ points. The argumentation just really horrible. At this point, it's just, ad hominem against me and Paul and yelling at Christians for listening to us in the first place. And they should treat Habermas with Christian charity. I'm like, scholarship doesn't work that way. Okay. It doesn't work that way. If your numbers are bad, your numbers are bad. Okay. And I don't know, apparently math has become satanic too. So yeah, I know. It could be, Paul. It could be. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. I don't really have anything substantive to say about Dale's response because there wasn't anything substantive other than the claim about Paul missed some citations, but I don't think it's going to make any difference statistically. So usually when you find a statistical error like that, you redo the numbers and the numbers are still close to what you originally got. So basically, okay, there we go. But yes. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. It kind of went off the rails of any kind of civility a long time ago. So there you go. Yeah, it is impressive. It is impressive and pathetic.
Let me ask you a question up front. You just brought something up. Do you see more on volume 3 than you did on 2 or 1 or 2? Which to me are far more substantial in terms of data.
You know what? I do think that there's been more attacks on volume 3.
Really?
Just because a lot of skeptics see this is kind of your main claim that they haven't had access to for a long time. Like there's been the claims about, hey, I've surveyed all these scholars and stuff, but this is kind of now it's out there published.
Once again, I am dumbfounded that Gary doesn't or won't understand the fundamental complaint. For this, we'll need to quickly review the nature of Gary's minimal facts argument for the resurrection of Jesus. Here's a very pretty interview from 2019.
I do a minimal facts argument, and I use basically 6 minimal facts. Well, the 2 criteria I use is that I won't use a fact that's not multiply evidenced from a bunch of different sources. And secondly, because of that, the vast majority of scholars in the 90-something percentile allow its historicity.
So 2 criteria for a minimal fact: multiply evidenced, and vast majority of scholars agree.
Okay, so that's been the crux of this entire argument. I want to make this abundantly clear. This is my problem with Gary as well. Okay, and unlike Paulogia, who they can hand wave away because he doesn't have a terminal degree or a degree in the field, they can't do that to me. Okay, my Master of Arts in Theological Study from Asbury, 1996, and my Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies and Ministry are relevant fields to the discussion of the resurrection, and they can't just hand wave my questioning away. I'm educated enough to ask the right questions. And so the question becomes, do you have multiple sources, and do you have a 90% backing up of these claims, these supposed minimal facts? Now, I have other objections to the minimal facts in and of themselves. Each one of them, I have a list of objections that I have with every one of them. But this is the 2 foundational pillars on which minimal facts rests, okay, is the 90% claim and multiple source claim. Those are the 2 claims. Now, both of those are problematic. I already know that. But here's the biggest problem. The multiple source claim, yeah, Gary has kind of hit those. Like he's even the claim that Paul, saw Jesus, believed he saw resurrection Jesus. Yeah, Paul talks about that in one of his letters, and it's in the book of Acts. So it's a multiple source thing. All right. That's all they're doing. Now, a lot of this multiple sourcing is 2 gospels say it, and I would say that's still for the Bible tells you so. I wish I had the jingle. But it's like this is the thing that Gary himself has said is the foundational of it. Okay, now here's the problem. He has never, ever produced data that proves his 90% claim on each of the minimal facts. Like Jesus was crucified by the Romans, and died. Okay, that's one of the minimal facts. Okay, he's never. These are all the scholars I considered. 90% of them agree with this fact. He has never produced data like that. Okay, he has never done it. Volume 3 would have been a perfect opportunity for him to do that, but he has never done that. And that was has been my beef with him since the beginning of this whole thing. And so what's sad is he still has not backed up this 90% claim with actual data. Okay, he just hasn't done it.
90-something%. Or is it?
Another main thing that came up that I've seen some skeptics going on about is this criterion. And you do indeed mention this yourself in volume 1 of your book, where it's there, where you have this 90-something percentile threshold, right, for you to, as the scholarly consensus criterion of being a minimal fact.
From volume 1 of your book.
An oft-asked question relates to my repeated references that the vast majority of scholars, or virtually all of these experts, agree with this or that conclusion. Can these phrases be identified in more precise terms? In some contexts, I have already been more specific, at least when referencing the shorter list of minimal historical facts. I most frequently think in terms of a 90-something percentile head count.
So
right.
I just wanted to kind of throw it open to you. Is this something you've apparently contradicted yourself on? What did you mean by the 90-something percentile? And how did you go about determining whether a fact met this threshold or not?
I only know of one place I've done that. Now, there might be another one or two that you mentioned, but I only know off the top of my head, I only know one case.
From Gary's 2012 peer-reviewed paper called The Minimal Facts Approach to the Resurrection of Jesus, the role of methodology is a crucial component in establishing historicity.
Regarding my references to the vast majority or virtually all scholars who agree, is it possible to identify these phrases in more precise terms? In some contexts, I have identified these expressions more specifically. At least when referencing the most important historical occurrences, I frequently think in terms of a 90-something percentile head count. No doubt this is one of the reasons why the concept has gained some attention. And there's a difference.
Okay, I want to pause there. Gary in that paragraph is admitting that the reason why minimal facts get so much attention is this 90% claim. Okay, you can't backhand this claim into something insignificant with minimal facts. It is one of the two pillars that he has built minimal facts on, but he has never bothered to put the pillar in place and demonstrate that it is in place. Like, he is not ever, to my knowledge, now maybe I'm wrong, but I have never seen him, minimal fact number 1, these are all the scholars, 90% of them, these are the 90% that back this fact, these are the 10% that don't. He's never done that. Okay, which is something he needs to do. It's every one of these facts he has to demonstrate and show the math. If you're going to make a math claim, a statistical claim, then you need to back that up with some math. Okay, and he has never in mind done that. Okay, he makes this claim, virtually all or many of the scholars or 90% of the scholars all the time. It's a claim without any evidence, as far as I can tell at this point. And even if it was true, based on Alter and Slade's work from 2021, so why would it be surprising that that's the case, seeing the vast majority of people that write on the resurrection are Christian? So yeah, it's a problematic point for me. At this point, I have to say, like Habermas's problem, his biggest problem has always been this claim. And now he's writing this magnum opus that's supposed to be his final definitive work on the resurrection. And volume 3 is all about the scholarly perspectives, which is exactly falling into this argument of 90%. And what does he put into it? A list of names and citations, and makes unsubstantiated claims about those names and citations because he's never bothered. And notice he even says, I've only done this like one time. Okay. So it's, once again, this is problematic scholarship. Okay. Dale can accuse me of being demon spawned liar all he wants. This is something that Habermas should have done a long time ago to back up his claims, and he still hasn't done it. Okay, as a scholar, that's troubling for me. Now, I am noting that the latest round of criticism against Habermas isn't me and Paul. Okay, Paul Ensign and Ed Rabyd are not Habermas's problem right now. His problem is his own team are looking at what we're saying and saying, you know what? Atheist or not, they're putting up the math and it's legit. Okay, they're putting up the observations and it's legit. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. Okay, it's not a. I'm sorry, I'm not making this criticism against Habermas out of some sort of spiritual realm. I'm looking at numbers. I'm looking at, do you have the proof of what you're saying? You've been making this claim that 90% of scholars back up minimal fact 1, minimal fact 2, minimal fact 3, 4, 5, and 6. Where's your data to support that? What are their names? What are their occupations? Do they have to sign a statement of faith? You know, what are their biases? Okay, he has left all that in such a nebulous realm that you can't analyze it. He's kept it in the realm of an unfalsifiable claim, even though giving it a 90 percentile number means it's something you could legit prove or disprove. Okay, like you could set some criteria and set up a hypothesis and the whole bit. Like you could do scholarly work on this, but he doesn't do it, and it keeps it in that nebulous, hazy realm of whether or not it's true. Okay, so I would never Apologetics Anonymous. Okay, yes. And people ask why I'm still into this and why me and Paul are going after this, because Habermas is considered the number one guy when it comes to resurrection scholarship. I mean, that horn has been blown by Dale and everybody else. Okay, but if he's making these kind of very basic scholarly mistakes and not backing up his stuff, then that means, what does that do to everybody else? And I think that's why a lot of Christians are now coming against him, because he's become a weakness in apologetics. He really has. Okay, not that it was great to begin with, but now, you know, you got your number one guy coming out with his magnum opus, and he still hasn't proven half of the claim, the basic claim about his minimal facts yet. That's a problem. Okay, that's a problem. Yes. Yeah, but he is, like, he's considered number one. Okay. Yes, math is always a problem for scholars. But yes, but this is the problem. Okay. And Paul's going to touch on this, and I'm going to back him up because it's still true.
It's between prescriptive and descriptive. And I'm frequently asked in interviews, I'm not asking you, did you set up a criterion? I'm asking you, where do you think the scholars that you've cited line up? And I'll say, oh, they could well be over 90. But that's descriptive. I don't say anywhere in print that I know of, I don't say I only take the 90% who concede this fact or that fact. You know, like the keyword only or something like that. No, I'll say things like, I don't count those where they're at when I say a high majority, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were over 90. That's descriptive. Prescriptive would be, you got to be this high to be in the study. And that I don't.
Okay, so at this point, what Habermas is doing is he's muddying the waters again. Paul is going to be a little bit nicer than I am. I don't give a damn if it's prescriptive or descriptive or whatever. Your claim is 90% of scholars back these facts. That has been your claim. That is a numerical claim that can be tested. I'm sorry. Okay, now you're trying to say, well, I never really meant this or that about the 90% claim. And it's patently dishonest. Okay, it's patently dishonest. You knew what people were going to think, okay, when they heard that 90% claim, and now you're backpedaling on it because you've never bothered to prove it. I don't know. I maintain that math should never end. Here's a prime example of why. That's probably true, Earl. That's not exact. Sorry. Didn't really come back, but people fantasize. I don't know if, I don't think any of us are insinuating that the apostles did propaganda. Sorry. No, I wouldn't say they did. I think there's a lot of reason why cults start that are not necessarily malicious. And I don't think Paul has ever said that this was malicious. You just have to have two people sincerely believe. It's quite possible that actually there's a lot of combination of a lot of things that go on to create a lot of cults that many people don't believe in. So yes. so there you go. But my issue with Habermas remains the same. You made a 90% claim. So where's your numbers to back up the 90%?
I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever said that I'm aware of.
Yeah. I have heard myself a couple interviews where you do mention this 90, but you never give it in a prescriptive sense. Like, unless 90% or more scholars believe it, I won't accept it. You've never said it in those prescriptive terms.
Yeah.
Once again, both Gary and Dale are completely oblivious to what the minimal fact skeptics care about. Gary has two criteria for a minimal fact.
The first one is, I will use no fact, no historical fact that is not attested by many different evidences. The second point is that because these facts are so well accredited, virtually every scholar there is will admit them.
Gary has spent his career, and indeed the first volume of his 4-volume magnum opus book series, on the first criteria. The first volume is even called Evidences. The problem is, Gary has been at this for decades and has never provided the data on the second point, on demonstrating that virtually every scholar will admit them. Whether Gary chooses to define virtually every scholar in terms of a percentage or any other metric is up to Gary. Whether Gary chooses to have a uniform metric for each fact or be flexible on a fact-by-fact basis is also up to Gary. No one is attempting to impose rules on Gary. All that anyone wants is for Gary to show his work. It makes no difference whatsoever whether the percentage of consensus, whatever number that is a prescriptive number, i.e., that Gary excludes or includes facts based on that math, or merely a post hoc descriptive number, i.e., Gary is describing his observation after the fact. Doesn't matter.
Okay, and that's a good observation. So basically, in their damage control, this descriptive definition all of a sudden comes out because, I'm just like ballparking it. I'm using my scholarly intuition. I've never made this criteria of whether to, it doesn't matter. Okay, to me, you have 4 decades, Mr. Habermas, made this claim of 90%. Show your work. Where do you get that? Okay. I'm tired of your ballpark intuition, scholarly, whatever nonsense. Give me the numbers. Give me the math. Okay. Like yeah, I mean, he's going on like this consensus basis in his head. And if you're going to have scholarship, you got to get past the stuff that's in your head or what you feel or think and give it a number. Otherwise, it's just your opinion. Okay. Sooner or later, you got to do this. I think it's probably very correct. I think I saw somebody, I think I lost the comment. Oh yeah, here it is. But if these volumes were submitted as his thesis or as his dissertation, they would be struck down until these problems were addressed. I think that's a very good comment. Like he would have absolutely, if this was his dissertation, and had all these pages, which is not impossible. There's some dissertations that are literally thousands of pages long. If part 3 was, the scholarly consensus argument, he would have had to do a hell of a lot better job than what he did. Okay. Like he would never have gotten past Michigan State's review on this. They would have shot this down. I'm absolutely sure of it. Okay. Because he's making this 90% claim. Okay. Where's your data to back that up? And that's all Paul and me have been asking for. Okay. Where's your data? Where's your data? I'm not interested in a descriptive opinion after the fact of what you feel or think or what your intuition is. You're making these two pillars are what minimal facts rests on: the multiple source criteria and the 90% criteria. You have said this for decades. Okay. Where is your evidence that proves that? And volume 3 would have been a perfect opportunity, Mr. Habermas, if you ever listened to this, for you to have done that. But you didn't take it seriously, and you've never taken it seriously. So there you are. So I don't know what else to say at this point. Got them in Denny's. That's possible. Oh, yes, little pieces of paper. Yes, we have the little pieces of paper. But yeah, it's my problem. My problem is still the same as Paul's. I was like, I don't care if it's prescriptive, descriptive, whatever. You've made a 90% claim. That's testable. Okay, it's a testable hypothesis. So there you go.
Matter at all if it's prescriptive or descriptive. No one cares. The point is that you've claimed to be doing the scholarly work where you have two criteria, and one of the criteria is consensus, and for decades, you've been asking everyone to just take you at your word. Trust me, bro, is not how scholarship is done. And Gary puts himself forth as doing scholarly work. Gary felt confident enough to put in writing in his book that his descriptive number is 90%. So it is entirely reasonable for everyone to ask to see the math. That it's not prescriptive doesn't absolve you from showing the math, because you've made it clear that some level of confidence is prescriptive to become a fact. No one's going to force you to retract your life work if the math ends up being 85 or 80 or whatever it is. Just show us the math you've said you were doing. Or maybe you'd like to hear the complaint from people you consider to be scholars.
The problem is with Gary is that he often, and so is Michael Cohen.
Okay, I want to tell you, this is Mr. Alter. This is Michael Alter. I reached out to Michael Alter to get his stuff. And so if you don't know, but this is a scholar. He's a Jewish scholar, and he's leveling his criticism at Gary as well. So I'm going to back this up just a tad.
Work if the math ends up being 85 or 80 or whatever it is. Just show us the math you've said you were doing. Or maybe you'd like to hear the complaint from people you consider to be scholars.
The problem is with Gary is that he often, and so is Michael Cohen and several other individuals, they talk about scholarly consensus, but they never show their data. It's one thing to say that the scholarly consensus supports the resurrection, but you have to have data. You will often hear, especially on the podcast, he keeps referring to what is called scholarly consensus. My argument, the argument of several other individuals, is that he never shows his data. Once again, I'll be very clear about this. Gary does not present his data. He just talks about scholarly consensus or words to that effect, as does Mike Lacona and other individuals. But as the old saying goes, where's the beef? You have to have data supporting your position. I want to know, where is the beef with Gary? You have to show the data. I have given a good faith effort with English language books. He has research assistants. He could have published something over the last 20, 25 years. Remember, he started with 1,400 back in 2004. But we need some type of data. In volume 3, if I understand correctly, he is just going to be presenting about 200 or 300 of select arguments from his 4,500 references.
Remember that this interview.
Okay, thanks, Scott. I know. I've said this to Paul and in a joking manner, I think once or twice. Paul Entz of Paulogia, I've said this to him. I've like, you're doing the Lord's work, tongue in cheek, kind of like it's. I can't imagine. Like, there's a lot of counter apologists that have to read apologists books. I kind of stay with the spirit and the basic theology of apologetics, and so it doesn't require me to necessarily read, because it's more of a that doesn't logically make sense or things like that. But yes, I'm such a nice young man, and I shouldn't. Thanks for the young part. I'm not sure how young I am. I'm young compared to some, I guess, but thanks. But yes, but this has been like what Alter just said is kind of my take on it too. Like you've had 25 years to produce the data that backs your 90% claim, and you still haven't done it. You always keep talking about this scholarly consensus. Where is it? What do you mean by that? Give me more. Anybody can get in front of a camera and say, we got the scholarly consensus behind us. That doesn't prove you have the scholarly consensus behind you. Where's your proof? Okay. So yeah, I don't know what to do there. So yeah, a fan fiction rewrite of history in a sense, but a return. Yes, yeah, that's true. I mean, I get what you're saying. You're a nice old man. You should watch this film. Thanks, awesome. That's more accurate. There you go. I'm a nice old man. I shouldn't be watching this film. This Lacona and Habermas. All right, very good. But we are, and that's kind of. This has been the beef. This is the, and it's funny that even after this video comes out, you get Dale coming out with a response video, and his first attack on me and Paul is we're demon-inspired atheists that are liars. Like he's got nothing but ad hominem. Okay. He still doesn't understand the objective. Okay. He still doesn't get it. And that's the real sad part.
It was prior to volume 3. And note how Alter, who has been following Habermas for longer than I have, was also under the false impression that volume 3 was going to be Gary bringing receipts for his minimal fact consensus claims. Intentional or not, Gary was setting this expectation.
You have no way of knowing, and I don't think this is true, that Gary invented the number 90%. Where is his data that 90% of individuals support the minimal facts? And I want to know specifically, who are these individuals? What is their degree, if it's a terminal degree? Where do they teach at? Where do they work at?
Yes.
I want to know, what is their faith?
Yes.
What are their credentials? I don't know. You don't know. Gary never presents any data. He just says 90% or more believe in the minimal facts. That is not acceptable.
Even Christians have concerns.
I'm going to be talking about a different layer, which concerns whether Dr. Habermas has actually documented the percentages that he has claimed, and even what he meant by these claims, where he's claimed that this, extremely high percent of scholars grants this. Did he actually even document that? Because we've been taking his word for it on a lot of this. And one problem with that is if he's bad at interpreting, but another problem is that now he has said he didn't even do a head count.
Yes, this is maximal data resurrection advocate Lydia McGrew. Sometimes
the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Something else that we know, Habermas has definitely very strongly implied in what he has written that these percentages were not mere guesses, but were based upon rigorous research. He has even used the word head count, you heard, I just read, even used the word head count, as in the last quote, and he's used words like counts and tallies in other quotes. And volume 1 also has this. The research notes themselves are anticipated to be published in volume 3 of this work as they chart the views of major critical scholars, reaching close to 1,500 manuscript pages and covering 140 separate categories or questions regarding the last days of Jesus' life. So again, he's implying that these research notes are gonna show this to have been rigorous. Going back to 2012.
Yet another person who was given false expectations about what Gary's Volume 3 would be.
And Volume 3 seems to indicate that we're not going to get them. All right? Volume 3 is a list of, this scholar said this scholar said this scholar said this. And there are issues with some of the interpretations, but it never claims to be laying out, M out of N of all scholars and X out of Y of all skeptical scholars acknowledge this proposition. It's a very disappointing comment to those who were looking forward to volume 3 with the expectation that, here we're finally going to get all that data that's going to show us how he's deriving these head counts. It's not there. Now, I have a suggestion about what I think might have happened. I'm not going to claim this is something we can know. This is a suggestion. But I'm trying to explain this data. I think perhaps Dr. Habermas substituted in his own mind reading and summarizing a very large number of articles and then getting a strong impression from all of that work of reading and, by his own lights, accurately summarizing those articles. He substituted that in his own mind for making a head count in the sense of, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, count them up, all right, and continuing to do so. Now, to be clear, given what I have recently discovered about major problems with his interpretations, even if I did have such a chart, I'm not just going to accept that, especially on items of special interest, without chasing down the publications and drawing my own conclusions, because I found so many problems with his interpretations. But we don't even have that, and I'm thinking maybe he's now correct to say that he didn't do some kind of comprehensive head count.
Okay, now I want to stop there before Paul talks, but what she's saying is, and she's trying to be as gracious to Habermas as she can because she's a fellow Christian and I can see it. But she's like, maybe he kind of substituted his work for this head count and whatever. It still doesn't change the fact that when you make this major claim over and over for decades, that somewhere along the line, like the multiple source thing he does, you're like, okay, this is in this source, and this source. Okay. Doesn't matter that they're all the gospels and I have my own problems with that. At least he's said, yes, okay, I've got that. But when he makes the 90% scholarly consensus claim, we still don't have data, and maybe he has substituted some sort of feeling, touchy-feely intuition for it, but that doesn't back up your claim. You still have to go through the work of backing up that claim at some point. So there you go. Some of you wonder what empire. I have many empires in my head, like there. I mean, given the context, we could do Star Wars, I've always loved Darth Vader, as if some people can't tell, but yeah, since I was a kid. But I also play Skyrim. So is that the empire we're talking about? Are we taking a side in the Skyrim Civil War? Of it as an elitist establishment? Okay, there you go. But yes, but this has been the problem. The problem, she's outlining the problem. Like, it's, where is your data? Where is your backup of this claim? And you keep using the words head count, and you keep using the words count this, count that. And yet when it comes to actually getting a count, you're nebulous as hell. Like, it's difficult. So I just started playing again, by the way. It's time.
You think of Lydia's hypothesis, Gary, that rather than having the head count you've been promising for decades, that instead you've gone down a slippery slope and are now just giving your opinion off the top of your head.
The only careful count that I did, and even that was just on the spot. I didn't do anything MA or PhD thesis wise, but the only one I counted, instead of just giving my opinion off the top of my head on the guys who I've worked with, the only one is Empty Tomb, and that's in volume 1.
Empty Tomb is not a minimal fact, so that count doesn't matter. And the rest?
Yes, and that's what I wanted to say. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, but you've dismissed the Empty Tomb as a minimal fact for those reasons. So it's like, it's not a minimal fact anymore, so it doesn't matter. Where's your head count for the 90% claim on the ones that you actually still consider minimal facts? On what basis? Because you just indicated to me with this little miss up that you did dismiss the Empty Tomb because of scholarly consensus, even among Christians, is kind of all over the place on that one. Okay. So you know that. And so you drop that from your minimal facts. I think it used to be there, but you still keep these 6 because supposedly they keep this 90% percentile. Well, prove that. Prove it.
To quote your own phrasing, was just giving your opinion off the top of your head. You do see why this distraction of prescriptive versus descriptive acceptance levels is entirely irrelevant to this question of, did you do the scholarship that can be peer reviewed, or are you just peddling vibes? In my humble opinion, this is the death of the artifice of scholarly rigor surrounding the minimal facts argumentation and its second criteria.
Okay. I want everybody to understand what Paul is saying is that this is the death of any kind of scholarly backup to the 90% claim. And he is correct. I'm going to back him up on that one. And I will say so as somebody who has the degrees that he is correct, that this 90% claim of scholarly consensus is not backed up by scholarship at all. If there was any illusion that it should die right now, because Gary has basically admitted in his absolute lackluster way of dealing with this issue that there is no real scholarship behind that 90% claim. And I will back Paul Entz on that one. I will back Paulogia on that one. I do believe that any kind of illusion that they had that this was a scholarly thing behind this 90 percentile claim, it's gone. And until you fix that, minimal facts, in my opinion, should be abandoned. Okay, because until you get every fact backed up by some sort of scholarship with a 90% claim, you've got nothing. Okay, you've got zero. Any illusion that we had that this was a scholarly thing about 90% and scholarly consensus doesn't exist anymore. Okay, I'm kind of done now. As Fred points out, yes, minimal facts has a lot of other problems that I can dismiss it with, but this 90% pillar, the big elephant in the room right now is this 90% of scholarly consensus claim is gone. It is done. Okay. And there is any kind of illusion, magic trick you're trying to do to keep this alive. Yeah, it's over. Okay. And I think it's time that if you want to go back and redo this volume 3, you should. And you should do it in a real scholarly manner and make it count. So yeah, it's not facts, it's arguments. Okay, Cranky makes a very valid point at this point. This 90% scholarly consensus is not a fact anymore. It's an argument. Okay, and it's argument without data.
Whole endeavor is
Just giving my opinion off the top of my head.
one thing that has come out of this is that Dale has introduced me to the counter-resurrection work of Michael Alter. I spend almost all my time reading pro-resurrection work, so I actually missed something obvious about Gary's second fact, that Jesus died by crucifixion.
They take the crucifixion of Jesus absolutely for granted because you can argue it's the best established fact in the ancient world.
So I made a promise earlier. I said that in one word, I can defeat the minimal facts. And it's based upon the second criteria. So what is the one word? With the addition of Arabic, the percentage of scholars accepting the empty tomb would be far less than 75%, or the resurrection. Habermas has fixed the deck with a biased sample by eliminating all books and articles written in Arabic representing Muslim views.
It's true. Gary includes no Arabic material in his consideration.
When you see where scholars are, and I've pretty much surveyed everything written on the resurrection, French, German, and English from 1975 to date.
And by the way, that's another way to go after the count. There's almost nobody who took the swoon theory. Virtually nobody. Not in the study I did for the journal.
Not in English, no, but in Arabic.
Their books and articles being numbered in hundreds and thousands. Islam rejects the notion that died on the cross. That's Surah 157, because they believe that Jesus indicated he would not die in the Christian Bible. So in one word, once again, we can defeat the minimal facts approach. The word is Arabic. Gary, I'm sure, does not include any Arabic journals or books on the resurrection. I'm sure he doesn't know Arabic. Neither do I. It's a logical argument.
Okay, so just so everybody's clear, what Habermas is deliberately doing, and I agree with Alter, he stacked the deck in his favor to get this 90, even if he did a 90% count, by not including Arabic scholars, by not including, Islamic scholars, you would have various Christian scholars of the Arabic persuasions, you'd have sheiks, there would be a ton of scholarship from the Middle East on this subject. He doesn't even include it. Okay. And so it's a stacked deck. And so minimal facts, and see, if me and Paul had run into Alter earlier, we would have probably been trumpeting this from the moon right from the beginning. But Alter also induced me to this problem with Habermas's stuff, is that he has a very biased sample of what he's looking at anyway in his head. So he's doing a head kind of sort of scholarly intuition 90%, and he doesn't even consider a lot of the other scholarship on the resurrection that should be included, because the swoon theory, a lot of people still hold to this, where Jesus didn't actually die. One of the biggest groups of people that continues to think this is a real possibility is Arabic scholars. So there you go. You can forget it. The beauty of live streams on YouTube is you can always go back to the beginning, but it's okay, Eric. Yes, he's biased towards Christianity, but then he wanted to make the claim that it was more non-Christians than Christians, and then it was less evangelicals than non-evangelicals, which I think had a PR problem. Like, the real issue at this point for Habermas, though, and if me and Paul had run into Alter earlier, like not just recently in the last couple of months, I would have said, no, wait a minute. How do you know that? The thing is, Gary kind of sabotaged himself, because he could have had that non-Christian versus Christian claim be more true if he had included Arabic scholars, but he left them out. And so it's like, what are you doing? And, I don't know what else to say. I don't know. It's just problematic to me now. What Habermas has done, as far as, like his books are half off now. So they're still half off. I just checked it. There's this, like, I think he's gaining more problems from Christians. And so far, the only guy, the little bulldog Dale, real seeker, that defends him, his big argument in defending him, why are you listening to these meanie atheists, and you should be giving Gary Christian charity? It doesn't work that way in scholarship. If you make a numerical claim, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian, an atheist, or whatever. You have to back that numerical claim up. And we're still waiting for Habermas to show his work. And he's the kid that's come to a conclusion that could be wrong or right, but he hasn't even bothered to do the work to show the work to see if he understands the reasoning. And that's the problem. So, yes. Guy doesn't. I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't. But he's like a bullfrog. Okay. Yeah. But to me, at this point, it's like, scholarship doesn't give a damn what your religion is, what your religious persuasion is. It doesn't give a damn about your feelings, your intuitions. You have to come up with a hypothesis. You have to give me a falsifiable claim. And 90% of scholarly consensus is a falsifiable claim. Okay, let's test that. And here's the real sad thing. Habermas has had 25 years to do the math on this. Okay, to give us some sort of math and give us some sort of numbers on this. The sad part is Paul Entz and Michael Alter have done more to do the math on this than he has. And they've done it in recent days. So I don't understand. Yes. Well, it's not a feeling. I'm not diminishing feelings, but in scholarship, you have to demonstrate what you're saying is true. Okay, so if you keep making a 90% claim, you got to demonstrate that it's true. Okay, sooner or later, you got to hit the rubber meets the road on that. This is my criteria of who counts as a scholar for this issue. Here they are. What's their religious persuasion? What's their occupation? Do they have to sign a statement of faith, et cetera, because we got to weed out bias. Like there's all kinds of stuff that could be considered here, and a study could be done. And the fact that it took Paul Entz just looking at the names involved in volume 3 to smell BS on the scholarship level here is really, really bad for Habermas. It really is. Okay, so yeah, but my faith, yeah. I think he does have this idea that because he has a PhD, that's where but scholarship doesn't come from authority. Okay, and it never should. So, but yes, here we are.
So once again, the Miller facts, 9% approval rate is a fake argument. There is no data. So when Gary says 9%, he's using a biased sample, and that's what Richard Carey talks about, and so do other individuals. It is disingenuous when we hear on podcasts, interviews, or in books this phrase, scholarly consensus. Because who is writing all of the books? Who is writing all of the journal articles?
This is a great point. If a minimal fact needed global acceptance, the crucifixion one might barely cross the 50% mark. This is just an interesting aside, as I think that if one grants that Jesus lived, that it's entirely mundane to grant that he also died. I do credit Dale for asking about my continuing frustration with Gary Habermas's bizarre to me interpretation of Galatians as support for his resurrection case, for which I enlisted Dr. Bart Ehrman.
Bart Ehrman has come out and said, no, Gary totally misquoted me. He got me wrong. I never said that. It was always he went there just to confirm his mission to the Gentiles and stuff. So in the first way, I just want you to kind of address that. Is that true?
For the full discussion about Gary's abuse of this passage, see my Resurrection Scholar Doesn't Like My Fact-Checking video. It's been going on for years, but here's some quick context. Resurrection apologists in particular always present Galatians 1-2 as if it's their friend. When they read it, they see Paul making a pilgrimage to learn all about Jesus from the eyewitnesses. They all told stories and laughed and hugged and left on the same page. But when I read these chapters, I see nothing but hostility between Paul and the men who knew Jesus. Our interpretations are so vastly different, I was starting to feel gaslit.
He makes me feel like I'm the crazy one.
Despite reassurances from Bart Ehrman that I'm seeing things correctly.
In my judgment, he did not go to consult with Peter about the historical Jesus. He went there because he wanted apostolic support for his mission to the Gentiles. Peter was the head of the church in Jerusalem. Paul was converting Gentiles and telling them they didn't have to become Jewish. He knew that there were other people, especially the leadership in Jerusalem, that disagreed with him, and he went in order to work that out with them so that they would support his mission. And so it wasn't about finding information about Jesus. So that's the first thing. I don't think he was sitting there taking notes from Peter about it.
Gary?
Yes, I will agree with them on this. Paul went there, and in chapter 2, where he goes back a second time, in verse 9, 2:9, they give he and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship. I take it today that means like laying hands on a missionary in the front of a church, But they commissioned them to take the gospel to the Gentiles while Peter and James took the gospel to the Jews. That was a big step in the early church. But I don't disagree with what Bart's saying. He was looking for enough agreement that they could all serve together, and Paul's slightly different message.
I don't disagree with what Bart is saying. This may not seem like a huge concession, but I take this as a huge concession. I've listened to more hours of Gary than any human should. And this is the first time he's even acknowledging the interpretation of the book that you find in almost any other commentary, or anyone who just reads Galatians without the resurrection apologetics priming.
Yeah, but don't miss the forest for the trees. If you're going to give somebody the gospel, which Paul specifically says in chapter 1 and chapter 2, in fact, what's the whole theme of the book of Galatians? The whole theme is, here's the gospel, get it right. If you get it wrong, you're anathema. I don't care if you're an angel. I don't care if you're a human being. You get this wrong, and you're going to be judged for it. That's Galatians.
That's an overly Gnostic interpretation of Galatians. Paul's warning isn't against wrongthink. The core issue is whether Gentile believers must follow the Jewish Torah to be saved.
And I want to comment on this on Galatians. When I was a pastor, I did not have Habermas's view of Galatians. Whenever I read Galatians, it's like Paul was there for a very specific issue. he got that dealt with and he went home. He went back to doing what he was doing. So it's like, did they talk? It's such an argument from silence of all the other things they might have talked about. But the only thing we know for sure that they talked about is what Paul says. And Paul says, I was there. You know, he talks about how he confronted Peter to his face. You know, there's a whole bunch of things that these resurrection scholars just ignore about the book of Galatians, and Habermas is no exception. And I got to just back up Paul here, like Paul, Bart, Ehrman, myself. There's a ton of other Christian scholars as well that kind of look at Habermas's view here and the resurrection apologists that way. And we just we shake our heads because you're literally just saying stuff that isn't there. It's massive eisegesis to say some of that. So even if I take Paul, you know, as a real person and these are real writings, Paul, the literature doesn't support this notion that he was there to get approval by Peter, because, you know, the biggest thing they all leave out is like Paul openly says that he got in Peter's face about an issue. So there was no, you know, the character of Paul is not to, oh, I'm going to the Jerusalem council so I can kiss their butt so they'll approve my mission to the Gentiles. That wasn't why he was there at all. He was there to be very confrontational, and he was. And so, yes, I would, with Paul here of Paulogia, I'm kind of like, wow, that's the first time he's kind of admitted he's been wrong on that. So it's a big concession. So there you go. But fold it into the main body. Yes, you could do that. I mean, yeah, there's the case that Paul is fictional. I don't know if it's a good case, but yes, it's possible that he was, although there are some secular scholars. The problem with doing ancient history, as with all things, is you're dealing with source data that's so old, and all the things that we do to confirm facts are just not there. So yeah, I mean, whether you think he's fictional or not, the character in scripture is not an ass kisser. Okay. He didn't go to the Jerusalem council to be a nice guy. Okay. He went there, or to just get approval. He went there to make his case for the Gentiles being included in Christianity. And anything else that came up based on based on the Epistle of Galatians and based on the book of Acts, from a character analysis point of view, I just don't see that that's something they may have talked about. They may not even have discussed it. So yeah, the character analysis just doesn't lend well to what Habermas is saying, is all I'm saying. So, and I like Paul Entz here, I was just like, whoa, he just literally consented to the fact that most Galatians scholars that write on Galatians is right for once. And yes, Paul Entz has definitely listened to more Habermas than any person should.
Galatians. It is explicitly those who insist upon works of the law rather than faith in God who are the ones with the wrong gospel. Paul's ministry is explicitly to bring law-free salvation to Gentiles. No other doctrines are in play here.
And sure, he went there to have his ministry. I tell everybody when I'm doing my timeline argument on the resurrection, I'll say, in Galatians 2:2, Paul said, I went back up later to set before them the gospel I was giving, to see if I was running or had run in vain. Okay, what's the gospel? Well, let's let Paul tell us what the gospel is. And, for example, 1 Corinthians 15, the best-known early creedal passage.
Christians rightfully complain when skeptics take passages out of context. Gary's question about Galatians 2 is, okay, what's the gospel? Then Gary wants to find the answer in a different passage in 1 Corinthians. But Paul tells us in the same chapter of Galatians what he means by gospel in this context. At the start of the chapter...
I want to start right there. I want to stop right there for a minute, because Paul Entz is correct. Gary is using improper hermeneutics at that point to switch to a different book. Even by Christian hermeneutical standards, which are not exactly high, I'll admit that would be a boo-boo. Like, if you have to go to the book itself to keep it in context, what Paul is meaning by the gospel, okay? Because what he means by the gospel may have changed over the years, or from book to book it's different, or there's a different facet of the gospel he's talking about. So if you're going to have people understand what he means by gospel in Galatians, then you need to find did Paul define what he means by the gospel in Galatians? And that's all Paul Ince is doing, and he's very correct to do it.
We have the gospel I preached among the Gentiles in the same breath as circumcision concerns. In verses 4 and 5, Paul says freedom-hating Christian spies have infiltrated his group, but he's not going to give in to them for the sake of the gospel. These spies also affirmed resurrection, so the gospel they were there to stop obviously wasn't in the resurrection details. In verse 14, they were not acting in line with the truth of the gospel. This is referring to Jews restricting Gentiles. How is it then that you force Gentiles to follow Jewish customs? The truth of the gospel is not resurrection here. The next section, chapter 3, Paul is still talking about the gospel as it was announced in advance to Abraham. Old Testament Abraham didn't know about resurrection, so that can't be what Paul is talking about. He's explicit about what he means so no one has to wonder. So those who rely on faith are blessed along with Abraham, the man of faith. Whatever is being discussed in other letters to other people, Paul is very clear in Galatians about what he's talking about in Galatians.
Yeah, he wanted to be approved of them in his ministry of the gospel. He used that word over and over.
That's true. And in Galatians, without exception, it's talking about freedom from law, not resurrection.
What's the gospel? It's the deity, death, resurrection of Jesus.
Which was not in contention in Galatians, is what Paul Ince's point is. In Galatians, as he points out, some of the people that he was going up against were people who believed in the resurrection. The resurrection was not at issue, okay, is the point. And so you reading the resurrection into this, Habermas, is very, very bad. So there you go. I mean, I don't get it.
Paul says it over and over. Romans 10:9 is another creed.
Gary's now jumping from Corinthians to Romans to find a definition of what Paul meant in Galatians. In hermeneutics, there's a principle of the priority of local context over remote context.
Correct. This is true in any literature analysis. If you want to know what somebody meant by a certain word, the first place you look is in the document itself that you're discussing. That's true of any literature analysis, and hermeneutics just applies the same literature analysis. So if Paul gives a somewhat definition of what he means by the gospel in Galatians, then I don't really need to go to other books that supposedly Paul wrote to get another definition of gospel. I have the definition he is using in the more immediate context over anything else. I'll put my biblical studies degree behind that one. Very rare for me to find a rare use for it. But when we learned hermeneutics, this is true, because you could have Paul talking about the gospel in 1 Corinthians, and he's dealing with a different aspect of the gospel entirely than from what he does in Galatians. And so words can change meanings from book to book by the same author, which is why you always look for immediate context. And that's a Christian hermeneutic thing, by the way. That's not an atheist thing. And so Habermas is showing that he doesn't really know what's going on in the rest of biblical scholarship. He's kind of focused on his one thing, and he's just showing that he doesn't respect other Christian scholars when they talk about this issue, or he just doesn't know the basics of hermeneutics. That he should know better.
Each letter from Paul has a different audience, a different purpose, a different rhetorical situation, and different vocabulary use. In importing gospel definitions from other passages to bolster his resurrection case, Gary is making a mistake that would have earned me a failing grade in first-year Bible college.
Correct. Me too, Paul. If you ever watch this, Paul, I have my biblical studies degree from Trinity Bible College, class of 1993. If I had done this, what Habermas is doing, my hermeneutics professor would have pointed out to me, well, why didn't you go to the gospel definition in Galatians itself? Because that's the first place you should look for a definition, is in the work itself, where it's being, like, you see this with literature all the time. If somebody writes an essay and they use this particular word, then if they also define the word in that essay, then that's the definition you want to run with. You don't want to run to all the other essays this person wrote in order to get that definition. Okay, you have to stick primarily with the one that's in the work itself. And Habermas is making a classic freshman year blunder in Bible college, that any Bible college hermeneutics professor or biblical studies professor would nail him on. So, yeah, there you go.
Paul, in order to recognize him as bringing the gospel to the Gentiles, you have to know what the gospel is. And the gospel in those two texts, 1 Corinthians 5, Romans 10:9, I don't think anybody, virtually nobody would disagree with this. The gospel involves the resurrection. Paul says without the resurrection, there's no gospel.
In a different letter, in a different context, to different people who are facing entirely different issues. Let Galatians interpret Galatians.
So I'm not saying he wasn't looking for their blessing on his ministry, but if you're going to bless his presentation of the gospel, you got to bless his presentation of the resurrection. And if he says, well, Gary just says it too often that way, that's because it's in the middle of a lecture on the resurrection. And while I say what I just said, that he was giving the gospel message, my lectures on the resurrection, I'm going to emphasize that.
It's not that you say it too often that way, though I'll admit it does drive me crazy that you say it so often, and apologists just let you get away with it. No, it's that you're doing hermeneutics wrong. I would have been every bit as upset about this as a Christian. Cross-referencing Romans or Galatians is legitimate only if the local context is silent or unclear. But
Correct. As a Christian, this would have driven me nuts. As a person who had taken hermeneutics as a second semester, or maybe it was first or second semester freshman in Bible college, this would have driven me nuts. It's a literature analysis problem for Habermas that he takes into apologetics and thus messes up apologetics. Not that it couldn't be messed up anymore. Well, maybe I could be wrong about that. Never dive too low of what apologetics will do, I guess. But yes, this would have driven me nuts as a Christian as well. Like as somebody who taught biblical studies and who taught hermeneutics a couple of times, in my churches over the years, this would have been something that would have been driven me nuts again. So yes, another excusagist. So he's taking bad hermeneutics into his apologetics. So even as a Christian, yes, I would have been upset with this.
here, the local context could not be more clear.
Well, I don't have a verse that says you ask him about the resurrection.
I suspect I'll be using that soundbite for future videos.
Yeah, Paul, keep that one, because that's exactly it. That is the problem. It's an argument from silence. Let's get down to the meat and gravy of this. He's making these resurrection apologists, when they talk about Galatians, they're making an argument from silence. They don't have proof that that's what they talked about, but they just assume.
For years. Thank you, Gary, for finally admitting out loud that you don't have a verse that says that Paul asked them about the resurrection.
But I'm just saying, you think Paul specifically asked about that when he went to Jerusalem? Because you were saying he inquired about the gospel. But would you say he also asked about that?
If I were those guys, I would say I couldn't see them. This is my view.
This is my view means that Gary is leaving the world of evidence and entering the world of his own imagination and intuition.
I couldn't see them doing this without giving him a doctrinal test. And if I give him a doctrinal test, if I discuss anything, it's the gospel. Why? Because he says that's what they do.
I got to interrupt here. A doctrinal test. Doctrinal tests exist in later editions of Christianity. I'm not sure early Christianity even thought about that yet. Okay. Even if I take these characters as real, which, as somebody has pointed out in the comments, this could be completely fiction, by the way. Like, there is a case to be made that Paul's a complete fictional character. Okay. Just like Jesus and everybody else. So depending on where you've been, but just doing a literature analysis, I don't know that early Christianity had a doctrinal test. So once again, how do you know there was a doctrinal test? Where is it?
Discussed in chapter 1, and that's what he discussed in chapter 2.
As we've already established, the gospel, discussed in chapter 1 and 2, is about Gentiles being saved without following Jewish laws. Nothing about resurrection. You are illicitly bringing this in from other passages, contrary to basic hermeneutical best practices for scripture interpretation among evangelicals.
So I'm not saying Bart is wrong. Overall, that's what he was doing. He wanted to be approved. But to be approved means to pass the test on the gospel. Now, I know Bart doesn't I know when Bart says it, he says,
Jesus didn't call himself God. Yeah, nothing against Bart. I just think you have to get the whole message. Resurrection's got, if you talk about the gospel, resurrection's got to be there, period.
Now that you've answered this question, Gary, maybe you can at least stop saying that Bart agrees with you on this.
Bart Ehrman has come out and said, no, Gary totally misquoted me. He got me wrong.
Yes, this is another big issue with Habermas, because Habermas did quote Bart Ehrman like he agreed with him on this issue, and that's just not true. Bart Ehrman disagrees with Gary Habermas on this issue very strongly.
I never said that.
Or is that too much to ask? To recap what happened here, Gary admitted that Bart's interpretation of Galatians is correct, and indeed the vast majority interpretation. I guess at least 90% of those who have written Galatians commentaries, but you'll just have to
I love this part where Paul does this. This is hilarious.
take my word for it. Since vibes are apparently good enough to declare consensus, Gary tacitly admitted that Galatian support for his resurrection case requires going outside the passage when the immediate context is already clear. And he's admitted that his hypothetical scenario about doctrinal tests is his own fan fiction scenario without supporting evidence.
I see this as an absolute win.
Now, twice, Dale asks about the ethics of this situation.
In terms of your volume 3 and your methodology, what sort of steps did you take to ensure that you are actually accurately quoting the scholars that you're putting in your in the volume?
Sure.
No answer.
Okay, but I am curious in your answer on the.
Yes, I want to reiterate. I did watch that part. Yeah, there was no answer. I can confirm that. Like, Habermas gets very evasive here when asked about his methodology about volume 3, because I don't think he had a lot to do with it. I think his research assistant did a lot of the work. He just kind of nodded. He didn't take it very seriously. It was Lacona, I think, who talked him into it in the first place, and he didn't really want to. Like, it was only supposed to have 3 volumes and not have the 3rd volume at all. And so I think Habermas didn't actually have a lot of methodological or anything to do with this volume, which is why he's very evasive about this.
More general, volume 3 methodological thing. Like, when you're quoting these scholars, the incident with Bart is just a case in point. Like, what steps did you take to ensure you're quoting them accurately? And did you try to make sure that you're quoting their current positions versus older positions? Like, what steps did you give to be accurate when you represented these scholars?
Again, a long response with no answer. So Dale tried to give him an answer.
So I think you would kind of say, based on that sort of case study, in general, when you're quoting scholars throughout volume 3, you would look at their multiple sources and cross-check, make sure, am I representing these guys right? I'm not just taking one quote out of context or something in full context.
And I want to be, you can say, well, you used 3 of his books. No, I use a number of Bart sources, but I did spend more time on those 3: Apocalyptic Prophet, Did Jesus Live, and his, what I call the Red Book, on how the Galilean preacher became the Son of God.
Strike 3. That is not an answer to how Gary ensures he's quoting scholars accurately. Just a
correct. And that was the frustrating part about Habermas, is like, and if I had been Dale in that moment, okay, I'd be like, you haven't given me an answer. Okay. And that would be a big red flag for me as to whether I want to back this guy up anymore. Okay. Because I'm like, this guy's being very evasive. He's not giving me an answer. And the answer he gives is weak. Okay. But Dale, and I feel, people ask me how I feel about Dale calling me all these nasty names, and, that I'm a liar, demon inspired, and there's no hope for me and all this other crap. And it's like, I have no animosity towards Dale Real Seeker at all, because I used to be a Dale Real Seeker about, 25 years ago. So I know what it's like to be blinded by loyalty and blinded by indoctrination. And so I have a lot of compassion for those people. And so I don't have any hatred for them. But it seems to me, if the guy that's your favorite, that you're being a fanboy for, you won't give you a straight answer to a question, that should be a red flag in your relationship. Like, you're leaving me here out to dry. I'm trying to defend you, but you're leaving me out to dry. Okay. And I don't understand. Yeah, he gives Gary way too much leeway. And it's because he's a fanboy, okay? And they have a relationship. And when you have a relationship with somebody, you tend to give them, and I don't have any animosity towards anything. I laughed about it. I think Paul and I both have had a good laugh about being called demons and all this other stuff. And I don't have any animosity towards him. I just don't. I can't, because I used to be there. And I understand what it's like to be in that mental, gridlocked sort of mind shift that you can't just get out of it. Mind shifting, like Mind Shift talks about, is difficult. And so you can get locked in. And so I don't have any animosity towards any of these people. I don't have any animosity towards Gary. It's just, if you're going to do scholarship, the problem Christians are having with Gary right now is, if this becomes acceptable scholarship, then scholarship for Christians and apologetics, a lot of them are very conscientious about that, and it would drop in quality. You would be accepting lower and lower, low bar bill crap. And they can't afford that right now. Apologetics know, if anybody's really honest about it, and they're apologist and in apologetic, they can't accept this lowering the bar crap. They can't accept it, because they will continue to lose. And what Habermas is doing is he's basically trying to get people to accept his low bar bill quality of evidential standards, and not backing up a major claim that he has made literally for decades. And so I don't have, if I have any emotion for these people, it's not hatred or anger or anything like. The only thing that got me angry is like, okay, here we go again, ad hominem. That always gets me angry a little bit, but I have nothing but pity. Okay. And maybe they don't want my pity, but they have it nonetheless. I have a lot of people. Yes. Quagmire is the word I'm looking for. Yes. It's a quagmire. They can't afford this, Earl. They really can't. And they can't afford Habermas getting away from it. This is why Christians are turning on him, and no amount of appeal to Christian charity is going to get them out of that, because they can't accept people looking at their scholarship level as Christians doing good scholarly work. God, and openly, there's a lot of Christian scholars that will admit, yeah, we don't have a lot of good evidence for this. Okay, we just don't. So they realize that if they don't correct Gary or try to get Gary to do something more, it's going to be a problem for them. And so that's why Christians are starting to come up against Gary, is because, and Dale is like, oh, you got to reach out to Christian charity to give them the benefit of the doubt. No, this is scholarship. Okay, there's no benefit of the doubt here. Okay, this is rigorous. This is peer review. This is have a falsifiable statement and prove that you can't falsify it. It's like this is what happens here. It's not a Christian game. It's not an atheist game. It's not any kind of religiosity game. Okay, scholarship has a certain bent to it, regardless of where you are or where you stand, and you've got to meet those standards. And Habermas just hasn't met the standards. And people are finally starting to notice. Thank you, Paul Entz. Thank you, maybe to an extent, me. But I have had this problem. I came on this show, when I first started my show, it was about helping apologists out. This is what the questions you need to answer. Until you answer these questions, I'm going to sit over here and be an atheist and not go back to Christianity. They still haven't answered my question, so here I still sit. Okay, so yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a problem there, and I think a lot. But here's the thing, Michael. As these Christian scholars do this work and they get more serious about scholarship, you know what tends to happen to them? They tend to start joining my club. They tend to start being, you know what? The more I analyze they tend to, the guy on the screen, Bart Ehrman, they tend to head that direction. The more scholarly, genuinely scholarly you get about this stuff, the more it pulls you away from faith. It's not demons. It's not the work of Satan. You are an honest person who tries to do honest scholarly work, like Paul, like Bart, like myself, and Alter and many others, and you start drifting away from the faith because the faith can't be verified. Okay. And we do get to, yeah, the games that people play, but it's not that at all. It's not that at all. And when you really seriously look at this problem, so yes, Christians are coming against Habermas because Habermas makes them look bad. Okay. No, in scholarship, and they want to be respected, and they can't get that respect if they let this stuff with Habermas slide. Christian charity be damned at that point. Okay, because now you're undercutting the quote unquote truth of the gospel message by doing sloppy work. And they can't have that.
A defensive trip down memory lane about the colors of Bart Ehrman's book covers. Understandably, Dale decided to give up on this line of inquiry, so we'll never know what steps, if any, Gary uses to ensure he's accurately quoting people.
I'm also today not emphasizing a different layer of criticism, which is real concerns about Dr. Habermas's ability to interpret accurately the scholars that he summarizes and lists and tells you, what supposedly this scholar thinks. There are real serious problems with that, but today I'm not going to be emphasizing that. Today I'm going to be talking about a different layer, so there's a lot of layers of problems with this.
Mysterious ways.
All right. Well, all right. At this point, I have been a bad host, so I will wrap up because I know Gary's got to go somewhere. But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, these objections raised by various skeptics. Again, we didn't mention anyone's name on purpose, but there were fans of mine, both Christian and non-Christians, who at least I think are sincere in wanting these answers. So that's why I felt.
By the way, I am sincere in still wanting these answers, and so is Paul. Just because I'm critical of the answers that have been given doesn't mean I'm not sincere in my desire to have actual good answers given. Like if Habermas came out tomorrow with this study about each fact and who the scholars were and what they were, and actually did the data, and it suddenly was presented, I would say, oh, thanks for finally giving me the stuff. This has never been an unsincere thing. Okay, I don't know what Dale gets at with sincere here, because it's not about sincerity. It's not about emotion. It's about this is what you've done, and it doesn't line up with what we need to prove this stuff. And I just don't see that. So there you go. Yes. Say Paulogia, he will not be named. Yes. So still Dale is voiding that.
It's really important to get your take, from the primary source out there. So
I will say, since it seems to be a decade or two since Gary had a public conversation with a skeptic, I'm grateful to his friends, Mike Lacona and Real Seeker Dale, for at least attempting to get honest answers out of him for those of us who have sincere concerns and questions. Thanks.
Echoed to Lacona, and I'll give Real Seeker that, because he did try to interview him and did try to get the answers. But if I had been Dale at that point in that interview, I'd be like, dude, I'm trying to defend you and you're not giving me anything to help defend you. And that's suspicious. It would have been suspicious to me, okay, as a Christian. Like, what the hell's going on? So I think Lacona has I've seen him be frustrated with Gary a couple of times. So Sam Hain, who cannot be named. Paul, who shall not be named. There you go. But yes, but I thanks for trying to get answers. Appreciate it.
Dale.
If somebody miscommunicates or says something wrong, let's look beyond what are they intending to say. And on that front, I think that'll improve our dialogue between the two sides. So
let me just put on the record, lest it not be clear, I'd very much love to have a friendly conversation with Dr. Habermas. And
me too. And I'm going to call this good for here, but hold on. I want to do one more thing, though. I want to add it back.
All right, man. Well, you did a super job.
I want to go back to the beginning, because this is the funniest part of the video. And I want to do it again, because I want to set up some of Earl's artwork. So here we go.
I wanted to ask you as well, how did you go about keeping track of all the scholarly opinions?
First of all, I'm not trying to sound cocky, but the Lord's given me a good memory. I teach PhD courses without notes.
First method, good memory. Second method?
As I would go through, I have a notebook here on my right. I forgot about that. It's got little tiny sheets of paper, little tiny squares.
Second method, tiny sheets of paper.
And thirdly, I would categorize them in notes.
Third method, categories and notes.
And fourthly, I remember a very good memory. It's just there.
Fourth method is also good memory. Perfect.
Okay, I had to do that again because I wanted to set up this picture. Oh, Earl nailed it, though, this one. I think this is hilarious. Little tiny sheets of paper. There's another part of the video where Habermas talks about his his stick figures, that he put stick figures by things. And the funniest part of Paul's video was the beginning, those four things: good memory, tiny sheets of paper, thing over here, good memory. So it's just been it was so perfect. And I remember Earl doing this like during the stream that I was last week, and she just came up with this. Like, she uses Adobe so she can pull out some of her assets that she's already done, and it's hilarious what she does. And it was but yes, the tiny sheets of paper, the good memory, the vibes, the I'm sorry vibes, tiny sheets of paper, stick figures, that doesn't work in scholarship. You got to do the math. So there's that aspect of it. And so I sent this to Paul, and he laughed about it. And so he says, yeah, that's kind of the feeling I'm getting too. So a lot of joy there for a lot of people. But yes, it's just been the saga. I don't know if the saga is going to continue, because the last video from Real Seeker was just a whole bunch of ad hominem attacks. The only substantive thing I saw in 45 minutes was like, oh, well, Paul didn't count all the citations correctly. Okay, well, let's go back and count them correctly. Do you think that there'll be any difference in the numbers? Probably not. So, it's not going to be that far different. So, I mean, you can add all those efforts. So, yes. So sticky sheets of paper, memory, all that jazz. So, yeah, it's the count citation thing. Yeah, well, yeah, manners. I don't think he has any. So, but yes, I've been accused of being demon spawned and inspired by Satan, and been accused of being a liar. I don't know how I became a liar, simply for asking a question. What are the 3 PhD scholars that have critical stuff to say about Gary Habermas's 3rd volume? And then I get the Alter and Slade thing, which was like 2 or 3 years ago. It was a feud between them. And the most recent video by Alter is like 2 weeks before volume 3 was even released. So it's an old feud, okay, like long before volume 3 was released. So I still don't know who the PhD scholars. Now, I do know, because both Paul and Dale have brought up Christians that are critical of what Habermas is doing. We now have a list of Christian names that are critical. So, yeah, so there you go. Yeah, I feel sorry for him to a certain extent, because I don't think he can see the problem. He spends so much time believing because somebody has a PhD in front of their name, like they have the authority just to say anything, and therefore it's true. And I don't think that that's the issue. He doesn't seem to realize that your authority comes from your scholarly effort, and whether other people acknowledge that your data is good. And he doesn't seem to know that. He thinks I'm a PhD, I can write on anything I want, and it's true. There's that aspect. So, yeah. Yes, I psycho manipulated them to try to get those 2 names, and they weren't even real. So I'm a little frustrated with Dale, but I feel sorry for him. He has my pity. He doesn't have my anger. I've been accused of being the spawn of Satan more than once in the 6 years of this channel. So I don't know that that's a unique criticism. It's unique to me that he would use that as a jab at Christians. Why are you listening to these atheists? I don't know. The atheists are coming with math. Okay. It's like, we're laying down statistics here, and we're showing studies of the past that have demonstrated that the only people that really talk about the resurrection are Christians and Muslims who don't like the resurrection. So it's like, I don't know how you get that. So I have no idea where this comes from, but he's trying to appeal to the Christians that are being critical of Habermas. Why are you listening to Paul Entz? Why are you listening to Ed Rabyd, the Rabid Atheist, and Paulogia? Why are you listening to these guys when they're atheists? Okay, and we know that all atheists lie. They're all the spawn of Satan. So why are you listening to them? And it's like, no, these Christians are looking at Habermas's work through the same lens of scholarship that everybody else does, whether they're atheist or not, and going, yeah, there's a problem here. And Dale, he's such a fanboy, and he's in that interview that we just saw, and he's like asking Habermas to give him his methodology, and he won't give it because he doesn't have one. He never had one. For over 2 decades, Habermas has made this 90% claim without a methodology to fact check himself. Okay, and that's a big red flag. And Dale at that point should be backing out. Like, he should be like, man, I've defended you, but man, this is like a non-answer. And so there you go. All right. Let's see. All right. But that's some of the new Earl artwork. Let's see, how are we doing with the well, the Redneck Snowman hat is leading, but we're 3 super chats short, so maybe that'll be Monday. I don't know. We'll see. I got new Christmas hats coming, so holiday season is upon us. So thanks for the 2. I think, who did it? Cranky and Fred. Thank you very much so far. I do have an unboxing. I don't know. I want to make sure Earl's there though. Earl, are you there? Are you present? Because I want to make sure she's here for this. So you are short. She seems to be. You're welcome. Yeah, she seems to be. She's here in spirit. I want to just double check it because I have an unboxing because she went through all the trouble to make sure I got a gift. Just show damn thumbs so you can show it. Okay, can you take a break from the thumbnail, Earl? Because I have the box, see, and I'm trying to keep it out of sight. I did open the one part of the box. So there we go. So as I understand it, somebody decided to get me a gift, and they did a whole bunch of stuff. And this is the outer box, which I'm going to keep out of sight because it has Earl's real name on it. And I don't want that to be in any way, shape in the video. So, but now I have the rest of it. So it's a present, and I wanted to make sure that we're all here for the unboxing of the present. So I don't, it's happy birthday. I don't know if it's a happy birthday. My birthday's in March, so I think it's a Christmas. But I think Earl raised some money for this. And some of you chipped in on this, so I want to make sure that so there's that. So here we go. So I'm going to open the box now. What do we got here? Oh, now this I did not expect, Earl. Oh my goodness. It got a little cockeyed in shipment, and it's shiny. So, but it's I Killed Earl and the Rabid Atheist. Oh, this. Oh, okay. All right. I gotta open it. But this is hilarious. This is great. Oh my goodness. So we have the Rabid Atheist in all of his form. That's good. And then the lovely I Killed Earl, and I'm trying to remove it, but it's being obstinate. Put this aside. Oh, Earl. So we also have the lovely I Killed Earl, and both of these. Look at that. My camera's a little off. There we go. See that? This is, without a doubt, one of the best presents I've ever received, Earl. I feel this one because now I have forever ensconced something that I can leave around here. I'm going to find a way to get this into the background now. But yes. But thank you so much. These are great. We got Earl with all her art glory and me. I'm actually wearing a suit in this, so that's probably the most sus thing. Yeah, we need a Fangs bobblehead. I see that. We now need a Fangs one. I think the picture right up there would be a perfect Fangs bobblehead, but we'll have to work on that. But this is awesome, Earl. Guys, oh man, I'm trying not to be super emotional. You just got done customizing yours today? Okay. But yes, you have a matching set with this? Earl, I'm trying not to be super emotional, but it's not working. When I started this channel 6 years ago, I was deeply frustrated about everything. And one of my deepest frustrations was not having a community to go to anymore. And over this last year, this community has just replaced church for so many reasons. And this is just one of the great examples of this. Thank you so much, Earl. You've become a really good friend. And I want to thank you for that. Like it's hard. It's hard for me, an autistic masking person, to express how much I appreciate somebody sometimes. And Earl, I appreciate you so much. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what goes on. So thank you very, very much. You guys are awesome, but this is great. I'm going to find a way to, I mean this with all my heart. You guys are starting to, it's kind of like I show up 3 times a week. That may increase a little bit coming next year, but it's a community now where if I'm having a bad day, I stream. Okay. I know that I got the next stream to look forward to, and I got the next thing to look forward to, and I'm going to meet with some of you, and you guys are going to be there, and we're going to have a good time, and we're going to have some fun. And we're an international community kind of thing all over. And it's just amazing to me, but this is amazing, Earl. Yeah, definitely good stuff. I kind of like it. I definitely like it. So it's giving me warm fuzzies. So yeah, there's a little fang in there. Yes, there's a very little fangs. Okay. Here, here, let me put these down. Put them down. Because this one's going to take a little bit to probably show everybody. But there is a little fangs in here. Here, let me get them up closer. But there is a little fangs. The focus is probably really bad, but there you go. There is a little fangs. Oh, they are very small, but like just for comparison, here we'll bring up Earl and Fangs here. They're great. My fingers are so big. So there you go. We do have a little Fangs. So I'll figure this out before the next broadcast of where to put these, because they're going to be in my background from now on. Family and togetherness, yes. Oh, yes. But yeah, there is a little Fangs in there, Earl. I got them all. So they're all on my desk right now, but that's great. And I do want to say once again my appreciation. It's probably the best gift I've gotten in a while. So thank you very, very much. I didn't know what it was. Like, I made sure that I stayed away from all the fundraising, and then the box came. I'm like, well, I can open the outside box if there's an inside box. Sure enough, there's an inside box. I kind of got some ideas. So, so there you go. Painted with love and many hours of frustration. Okay, there you go. There you go. But yes, so yeah, it's small enough to fit on the lap. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, I'll find a way to do it. It'll happen. It'll happen. Yeah. Oh, yes. But this place when I first started streaming, I was very much in trepidation. Can my autistic self handle this? And it's actually turned out to be pretty good for me. So, but yes, I can still actually smell the paint, Earl. There's a little bit of a paint smell to him. So, but yes, but very, very well done. Very well done, Earl. I'm going to cherish these. So they'll stick around. They're going to be around for a long time. So I'm a minimalist, but there are certain things that mean so much to me. They're going to hang around, and this is definitely one of them. So we're going to have the Rabyd Atheist and Earl and Little Fangs around for quite some time. So you sent a picture of your set? Oh, ooh. Oh. Okay, now I got to save this where I can grab it. Hold on. I always got to name things so I can remember what they are. And then I can pull this picture up. And so there you go. There's Earl's set. If you want to, here. Yeah, see the difference? That's pretty cool. Earl, that's really good stuff. I appreciate this more than you know, more than I can express. So, yeah, it's impressive stuff. So, but yes, Earl has her own set. I have my set. And I have to appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. So, absolutely. Absolutely. So, but yeah, beautiful stuff, Earl. I appreciate it so much. But yes, it's not very often that I can say of a woman that I created a cult with her. Oh, you got a little row? Okay, yeah. You got your dog then, right? Okay. There you go. There you go. But yeah, I've got a miniature Fangs and the Rabyd Atheist, and I killed Earl, and it's all good. And you have one. So it's an early yeah, all of you that donated, yeah, thank you for that too. That's kind of your expression. So, but yes, I will definitely find a way to fit this into the background somewhere. It'll probably replace something on the bookshelf. So we'll see. But yes, I couldn't have asked for more. See, Earl's passion for art kind of keeps coming out, and every time I see what she does, and this is just another example of her artistic brain, which I'm starting to understand and don't know whether to be comforted or scared about that. But I just appreciate it so much. This community has meant so much to me in the last couple of months, because it's been my long-running deconversion problem of having a community of people just to hang out with and BS with and talk about stuff with, and just be people with similar interests, just trying to survive in a very crazy world. And so, yes, the answer is yes. Okay, there we go. All right, fair enough. But yes, I'm often overwhelmed by you guys. So, yeah, I mean, you're welcome here. You mentioned that you might have a disagreement with Bart Ehrman. I already know what it is, because Bart Ehrman actually thinks that Jesus was a real person. Okay, I can already tell you that. And that's kind of my disagreement with him too, because I'm like, yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. So, and I feel the same way about Paul and some of the rest of it. Did the church create this or whatever? But yes, so. No. Good grief, Martin. I'd say that this is a family show, but it's not. Yeah, Paul, I hear you. I know where you live. Keep your head down, my friend. Stay safe. Okay. So then, I mean, I care about all of you. When some of you disappear for a bit, like, I had to reach out to a couple people because they hadn't been around in a while, and they're like, yeah, well, kind of busy, kind of keeping my atheism on the down low, kind of thing like that. So, yeah, so it's we all have different reasons for being, between the elder gods and various forms of, wolfy, we got 2 werewolves in the house and a whole bunch of other things, like, if I pull up, this picture, you're all in here somewhere, and so the community is it's gotten bigger, and it's been a lot more fun. And I've enjoyed every week with it. So it's been a great time. And as we get through these holiday seasons, me working retail and the rest of you doing what you do, it's like that. So, oh, okay. Yeah, I want to make that clear. You bought yours for yourself, but you paid for mine. All right. Fair disclosure. Yeah, we want to make it abundantly clear. But yes. But thank you, one and all. I know Earl did a good chunk of the artistic work and organized it, but all of you that donated, thank you so much. You like your pink goat head? There you go. Yes. It's derivative literature. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know where you're at. Okay, I see, that's the thing with a lot of you. I know where you're at when you're not here. And I'm not one of those, like, it's not like in my pastor days when I had to guilt trip everybody when they weren't like showing up to church whenever I saw them. I don't do that here. I figure if you want to be here, you'll be here, so, and if you don't, so there you go. Yeah, me too. Me too. Like, I can see the legendary development, and that kind of indicates that there's a source for the legendary development that the church had. But at the same time, it's like there's no actual evidence that Jesus of Nazareth, the rabbi, actually existed within that culture. So it's kind of like, So, you're in the home of 3 major religions. Yeah, there you go. And see, that's the thing with a lot of you. Like, a lot of you come, like, Triple E is here when he can be here, but he works, and he deals with family that are Christians and believers, and so I'm happy to be here when anybody else can be here. So it's good stuff. But thank you, one and all. And I have to say, I'm gonna take this down. But I have to say, not a bad likeness. And not bad at all. And if we throw Earl up here, see, not bad. It's great. Not bad at all. And of course, none of us would be anything if it wasn't for little Fangs. I think this is, it's so cool. It really is, Elizabeth. It's so cool. Thank you so much. But folks, I have been up for a bit, and I haven't had a lot to eat and drink, and this has been, but just stay tuned. I don't know if Paul will even address Habermas again at this point. We're kind of like, Habermas has kind of disappeared. He hasn't talked as much. I'm thinking his publisher is probably saying, dude, stop talking. and because I got one more book to put out this summer, and it's supposed to be like his thoughts about the resurrection. I'm not so, but I don't know what else will happen. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was a little bit informative too, as what's going on. But I've kind of, Real Seekers lost hope for me. So I've kind of lost hope for him, seeing the light. The moment you start calling me like the spawn of Satan, I'm kind of guessing that you're not interested in hearing anything else I have to say. So you have to customize the customized. Earl, I think that's why I like you. You're not content. But Peace out, everybody. I'm going to take off and grab something to eat, and I'll see you all on Monday. We'll probably do another fireside chat where it'll just be open discussion and less, keeping things in line and stuff like that. So thanks everybody for stopping by. May fangs nibble on all of your hearts. In fact, he's not going to nibble a lot this size, is he? But may fangs nibble on all of your hearts, and may he purify all of your vegetables from religious corruption, and make sure that you leave a circumcised carrot out for fangs, because, that way he won't bother your stash, like leave it on top of your stash, and he won't, he won't bother your stash. He might grab the carrot. He might still take your stash. I can't make any promises. But make sure you circumcise your carrots and all that stuff. And I just see that Triple E did show up. Thank you for coming by, man. But I understand when you're not here why it is. And Apathetic Minx got that membership from Triple E. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll put the Redneck Snowman hat on the block on Monday again. So thanks, everybody. And nom nom and all that. And as always, folks, live your best life. You only get one go around and then it's over. And so you want to take all your time, your money, your opportunities, everything that you get, and give it to yourself, the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. You'll be happier if you do. And don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith, because that's a dead end. Oh, I got to wait from Earl. Oh, did you finish the thumbnail or mostly finish it? Okay. I will wait that. Ah, yes. Just this is a little advertisement, running a little late, but here we go. And I will pull this up. But Earl is doing a birthday stream, I do believe. And here it is. There you go, December 27th, 8 p.m. I will be there. We got it. We got it. We got it. We got it. We got it, Earl. Don't cry. But this is the other advertisement. We got it. These octopuses deserve citizenship. That's the title of the stream. You guys got to see this. I gotta minimize myself. There you go. But there you go. I'm going to advertise her birthday stream. Phew, we got it in. Sorry about that, Earl. After doing all the nice things and all the nice things I've said to you, I almost did something very disrespectful. I'm getting very hangry. That's usually my problem, is when I get hungry, that's when I get irritable. So, which is why I eat all the time. So, but yes, I killed Earl and friends. So we will have basically, so there you go. But do octopuses deserve citizenship? I'm sure Cranky Elder God will show up to figure this out. He's probably going to be a nay. I'm just going to say it. But there you go. Thanks very much. I killed Earl for the gift for you. We'll make sure we're at your birthday stream on December 27th. Don't not be there. Fangs will not like it if you don't show up. So there you go. There you go. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. I will see all of you next time on Monday. We will probably be doing a fireside chat, and I will continue to work on some other things. So we will see, but just want to make sure Earl's birthday gets advertised, because I'm going to definitely make plans to be there. So I will be there, and probably many others. Maybe Asho show up. I haven't seen Asho tonight, but we'll see you then. But thanks for stopping by, everybody. I will catch you all next time.